Mic check. Mic check 1 2 1 2. Can anyone hear me in the chat? If anyone is listening, put one in the chat if you can hear me. Okay, Nini baby, how are you doing? Thank you. Richard Victor Dixon, what's going on? Peace. All right. Yeah, I had some major technical difficulties. I'm not sure what's going on. Um, the last 24 to 48 hours has been, I think there's a combination of hardware issues and software issues on Google's side. Um, I don't have these issues on when I'm at work, so. But thank you all for being patient. Please hit the like button as you come in, as Nini Baby said. Share the video if possible, and document in the description beneath the video for you to follow along with. Technical difficulties. I apologize once again. Um, Also apologize for the other night. Had lost one of the live streams, so we will get back to business as usual. BAU. So tonight's topic is Black business intelligence, so public banking as infrastructure. And one of the reasons why we brought this up because I do a lot of social justice work on the ground, and this is always a big topic, and a lot of people don't know um, how to how to combat what they consider to be the radical forms of capitalism. The the issue for a lot of Black people is how do you galvanize your economic base, and how do you do it from a democratic standpoint? So public banking has been a topic of discussion because of the ability that it has to harness people power. So if you look in the docket in the description beneath the video, you'll see that there's a number of items on the docket that refer to that. And the question is, what is a public bank? A lot of people don't know really what a public bank is, and a public bank, for all intents and purposes, is a in public entity um, where the owner and the shareholders are the constituents of the community. Um, you might know it as a community bank, but a public bank is an institution of the community itself. It's actually a staple. It's similar to that of a public school, or as you would call, you know, your police department is public. Your court system is public. Your city hall is public. So those are pieces of infrastructure that are tied in with the governance of the city and the people itself, or the state. And what public banking can actually do is essentially allow people to have more say in what goes on with public funding, because people's tax dollars is is, is exactly what funds the operations of a public bank. So the next item on the docket here is what are examples of a public bank? The examples of a public bank would be the Bank of North Dakota, which was established in 1906. Um, and it still is, I think it's one of the oldest public banks in our country. Um, and it's used mostly for agriculture. So agricultural projects and things of that nature, things that sustain the state and the city, the state itself. Um, the money from that public bank gets redistributed to those. public works offerings such as agriculture. So that's why it's that's why you have that North Dakota Bank. How it was born out of um, radicals of the Revolutionary Populist Party who put that together. Um, so they're the only state. North Dakota is one of the only states that has it and has it untouched and unchallenged. Something that I think Black people can actually learn from is because that institution is still standing even after 100 years. So it's possible that it can be done. So we know that as an example that has been done. So the next item on the docket is what are the benefits of a public bank? The benefits of a public bank uh, is essentially, as I said before, you have the money that taxpayers pay goes into that infrastructure, into that institution, and once that money um, gets harnessed um, from an institution standpoint, then you can decide what projects and what operations does that bank need to be spent the money needs to be spent on. You have a whole lot of pensions that come out of these the institutions of the city and the state itself and the municipalities. Well, if they're going to dole out this money, there's more eyes watching it because now you have 1 million people who are invested into it, um, putting their money into there because that's where all the tax dollars go. That's where all the people's checks and things like that go. So the benefits of a public bank is more democracy, puts the power into the hands of the people, and that's when you have um, more say so on a number of public projects, playgrounds, other institutions such as traffic lights. Not sorry, not institutions such as traffic lights, street furniture, basketball courts, things of that nature. All that stuff comes into play. Public housing is a part of public public banking as well. That's where public banking and public housing goes hand in hand. What's
All
going on?
Mike, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
Also, you want to speak about for the let's say for the business executive, the business person who might want to extend on, let's say if they have a farm or if they have another type of business, you can go to that public bank. And the lending criteria is, it's strict, but everyone kind of knows what's going on there. Not any hidden fees, not a lot of hidden crap going on. Everybody knows what's going on there. You've peed into that bank a great deal, so at the end of the day, that bank is also going to be less discriminatory against you, as it might be maybe
Hmm.
for someone else who might go to another type of bank who've paid into it, but yet it's going to be discriminatory because they just may not like, they may not like how your breath smells, or they may not like what you're wearing, or they may not like color of your skin or whatever. Um, you
Red
know,
line.
so that eliminates a lot of that. So this is much more fair practice. Everybody knows, since it's public, everyone knows everything that's going on. It's a public accounting of everything that's happening with that bank as well. So people get a fair shake. And as far as
Hmm.
excessive fees and all this kind of craziness that you'll have with the banks in there, people vote on that, and you don't have that going on. Okay, so that's why you have, Mike. Did you mention some of the public banks that existed here in this country already?
Talked about North Dakota, Bank of North Dakota being the oldest since 1906.
1906, 1906, and one of the most. It's never had a run on it, never shut down, never had a problem. When the other banks were going belly up and having all kind of issues, this bank didn't. Okay, didn't have that problem. Why? So you have
Right.
to ask you questions as to why these banks are potentially good for the community. And remember, North Dakota. The reason why I will stress that a little bit because it's a mostly white area. Okay, very few blacks, very few Indians there. That didn't get more or less removed, but very white. And You know, you had people who were Republicans and Democrats and so forth. You had all kind of different people in there. But at the end of the day, those people did not come in with any politics with respect to how that bank was being run. They knew it was serving them. So
Hmm.
politics, communism, socialism, capitalism, all that, all them isms got into. Well, the only ism it was can you help me ism? You know, can you help to invest in my business ism? Can you help our community be safe ism? You know, those isms certainly played a big role, as opposed to any other
Hmm.
labels that we want to land on it. And no political party, Democrat, Republican, or any other kind, want to touch it. Have not touched it. Do not want to touch it, and will not touch it, and you don't even hear about
And don't forget about Maddism.
it.
Well,
That is
and it's interesting. What's going on, Complex Design?
What's
It's
up, bro?
interesting that Complex
complex.
comes
What's
on
up,
the
baby?
panel. Yeah, it's interesting that Complex comes onto the panel because he's from SoCal, and he can speak to what was put on the ballot. That's on the docket, but we'll get into that in a couple items.
Yep, yep.
Um, the reason why Complex is important in this because he has pushed for the legalization of cannabis as well as social equity programs that focus on the legalization of cannabis, especially for Black men who are affected by the drug laws that put them in jail. Where public banking comes in as a benefit is that the Bank of North Dakota public bank focuses a lot on agriculture. Agriculture being a staple of the community, cannabis being considered a part of agriculture now gets its proper funding and now gets its just due
Bingo.
because private banks don't want to touch it. So why this whole idea of a public bank, the benefits of it comes part hand in hand with the legalization of cannabis. Complex, do you want to speak to that?
No, I mean you hit it right on the head. However, there will be an article that we're going to be covering this Sunday on the cannabis hangout, where there was a memo that's been circulating around about changing the the Fed laws with regards to cannabis related funds, if you will, and banks being able to basically hold money that was acquired through the transactions of cannabis. So that's something that there's something um, on the table right now to maybe shift and change that. However, public banking was essentially the solution that was proposed late 2017 on into 2018. So that's been something that's been discussed for quite some time with regards to cannabis. California put together an exploratory committee with regards to that, but the Fed basically like they barked that down. So yeah, we'll kind of see what comes about. But I will say this: it's going to change here. It's going to change here real soon with regards to the banking laws. Too many states are legal now, and there's
Hmm.
just you kind of have a crescendo effect, right? The majority of states now have some sort of legalization measure on the books. You
Hmm.
can't continue to not allow for transactions to take place. You just can't.
Yep. And one of the things about the benefits of a public bank is that now you can create ballots within the bank itself, within the institution itself. So rather than wait to go to the polls, you can put the polls right inside the public bank and vote on which projects do you want to fund. Do we want to lay down fiber as a public utility so that everybody in the community can have public internet? In the same way you have public broadcast television that is paid for by your tax dollars. Um, same things such as your fire departments, your you know your utility companies that come out and deal with water. All of these things are encompassed in terms of the benefits of a public bank. Means that those utility companies, those contractors, and things of that nature have to abide by the rules or play safe with the public bank because people are not going to let you walk away with their money,
Mike,
especially
you mentioned.
especially a community that is practicing the Second Amendment. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say that, you because you mentioned that Bank of North Dakota. That bank's what? It's been like over like 125 years, something like that. And it
1906.
has, yeah, something like that. And hasn't so much as seen a problem with regard. It's been relatively immune to the greater like national economy. This bank has been very stable because of the way it's structured and how it operates.
Hmm. Hmm. All right. Let me get to this next article. All right. The next article is from Yes Magazine. Think this is an op-ed. The public banking revolution is upon us. More than 25 bills are now active, and dozens of groups are promoting the idea. As public banking gains momentum across the country, policymakers in California and Washington State are vying to form the nation's second state-owned bank, following in the footsteps of the highly successful Bank of North Dakota, founded in 1919. Okay, my date was off. Sorry. The race is extremely close, with state bank bills now passing their first round of committee hearings in both states' senates. In California, the story begins in 2011 when the Assemblyman Ben Huso filed his first bill to explore the creation of a state bank. The bill, which was for a blue ribbon committee to do a feasibility study, sailed through both legislative houses and seemed to be a go. That is until Governor Jerry Brown vetoed it, not on not on grounds that he disapproved of the concept, but because he said we did not need another blue ribbon committee. The state, sorry, the state had a banking committee that could review the matter in house. Nothing was heard of the proposal after that. So when now State Senator Huso filed SB 528 earlier this year, he went straight for setting up a state bank. The details could be worked out during the 2 to 3 years it would take to get a master account from the Federal Reserve by commission drawn from in drawn from in-house staff that had access to the data and understood the issues. Senator Huso also went for the low-hanging fruit, a proposal to turn an existing state institution, the California Infrastructure and Development Bank, or IBank, into a depository bank that could leverage its capital into multiple loans by turning the $400 million IBank now has for loans into a bank capital. It could lend $4 billion backed by demand deposits from local governments that are its clients. The iBank has a 15-year record of success, experienced staff, and detailed procedures already in place. Low risk customers consisting solely of government entities and low interest loans for infrastructure and development that are in such high demand that requests are 30 times current capacity. The time is also right for bringing the bill because a growing public banking movement is picking up momentum across the U.S. More than 25 public bank bills are now active, and dozens of groups are promoting the idea. Advocates include a highly motivated generation of young millennials who are only too aware that the old system is not working for them, and a new direction is needed. So, um,
Mm.
this is exactly what I've been talking about. So other people are other groups of people are seeing that there's a necessity for this. So when we talk about Black empowerment, we can't just talk about a hashtag and medallions and tambourines. There has to be some actionable items on the table, and institutions and infrastructure such as a public bank is going to be the way to go if you want to collectivize Black people's dollar. The Black dollar only bounces once every 6 to 8 hours before it leaves the community, whereas the Jewish dollar it bounces at least anywhere between 10 to 20, 25 times before it ever leaves. The same thing for the Asian dollar. It bounces multiple times before it ever leaves the community. In fact, it probably never leaves the community because
It's
they have their own
20.
banking.
Yeah, I was going to say, largely it's 28 days before it circulates
Yep.
out.
Yep. Nagon, you have anything you want to add to this?
Yeah, if certainly, by Canal Street and so forth, and you ever go into the Chinese community, they have they have what they call the Chinese Democratic Club, which is a which is in some respects a public bank. Okay, hear me out. Democratic Republic. The Chinese Democratic Club. Supposed to be a political club, but it's a banking institution as well, and they help to fund Chinese businesses and so forth in there, and they keep politics in line. And it doesn't make any difference what party you're in. It comes down to the big party is ultimately is the Green Party, and that's the money party, and that's what they're going to invest in and keep expanding their businesses and buying more property and doing these kind of things in that area and expanding in Chinatown. That money stays in there. That money just stays in there. They just build and buy, just keep doing it, bringing in more business, bringing in more Chinese folks, and they have their. In fact, they're so powerful there. A little area, they don't even have white cops. They have special Asian force, Chinese police that basically patrol their own community, where we don't control our own. But once again, if you start to see their dollars keep turning over in that community, yeah, it rarely leaves. Rarely leaves.
And they're going
Um,
same with the Jewish community here in California, man. You go to their communities, dude. The police ain't there.
It's. Where I was when I was living in the Highland Mills area or up near Monroe House up there, um, you had a Hasidic community, and that whole Hasidic community was about a mile over, and they had their whole community center, community groups. The seeds were there. They had all the Jews that came. There even some who came up from Europe and Russia and so forth. They were in there, and they had their own apartment houses and everything else like that. They had a whole city. They had their own power system. They had their own police force, basically their own security force that they had. The police could come in there, but the police basically they just drove through and just left. They didn't stay in there. They didn't stay in that area. And then if you had electrical problems and your power was out, say in the town, that was the only place that was lit up because they had their own generators and everything else like that. So they had their own self-contained community. Okay. Yeah, was there debauchery there? Yeah, you had Israeli drug dealers and so forth that were there, and they caught one guy, Michael Gross, who had $10 million in a safe in his house, and they were able to come in there and get involved in some of that. But at the same time, these guys had their own community. They had their own community with their own system set up. I mean, we had that in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where they said that money passed in Tulsa and these black communities that were Black Wall Street that was very successful. That money turned over about 40 or 50 times before it left the community, and people were prosperous. That's why whites saw that, were upset, they destroyed it. Because, at the end of the day, all these policies that you have that have come down from that time is designed for your community to fail, for you to fail. None of this stuff was designed for you to do well. I just we can get on that point a little bit more, but that goes on to say a lot of what we're doing today is designed for you to fail, not to succeed. So we have to take some of the old, we were there as well. So not to say that we weren't, we were. So I just wanted to make sure that that we keep our eyes on the ball, that we did this before. We were just like the other communities who were very successful at it, and we need to begin to start to reevaluate where we were in the past again and get back to some of this, get back to those fundamentals, because we practice that in our community as well, but that's been lost. And I think it's about time for us to start to incorporate a lot of that again, and a lot of that is going to be done through our thinking and through, first of all, getting our minds right for this. Um, but we could do it. We could do this quickly. We could really turn this thing around very quickly if we did adopt that type of those type of practices.
Mhm. All right, let me get to this next item on the docket. Item number 5 is Public Banking Bill AB 857. So, share my screen real quick. All right, so this is the California Public Banking Alliance.org. AB 857, California Public Banking Bill text and fact sheet. I'll read the first couple paragraphs to give you a synopsis of what's going on. For the first time in California history, legislation has been introduced in the state assembly to give municipalities and the power to create their own public bank. Joint joint authors, Assembly member David Chui of San Francisco and Assembly member Miguel Santiago of Los Angeles introduced a introduced AB 857, a 2019 session bill that will make it easier to establish regional and municipal public banks throughout the state of California. The legislation is sponsored by the California Public Banking Alliance (CBPA). CBPA designed the bill to provide localities a flexible framework for establishing public banks with appropriate terms, exceptions, and constraints. CBPA is a coalition of grassroots public banking advocacy groups pushing for regional and municipally owned public banks across California. Member groups include Public Bank Los Angeles, San Francisco Public Bank Coalition, Public Bank East Bay, South Bay Progressive Alliance, Public Bank Santa Barbara, Public Bank San Diego, People for Public Banking Santa Cruz, Orange County Public Banking Coalition, and Friends of Public Banking Santa Rosa. Beneficial State Foundation, Friends of the Earth, and the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights of the San Francisco Bay Area are also members of CBPA. AB 857 is endorsed by over 100 organizations representing 3.3 million members in California, including California Labor Federation, AFL-CIO, SEIU California, California Democratic Party, California Nurses Association, National Nurses United, American Postal Workers Union, UFCW, Western States Council, AF, AFS, CME California, American Federation of Teachers, CFT, AFT Local 1931, and Local 2121. Our Revolution, Fossil Free California, Courage Campaign, Los Angeles County Democratic Party, Green Party of California, United Educators of San Francisco, Healthcare for All, California. Read the bill and
Hmm.
accompany resources. So this is a massive effort galvanized by multiple groups of people. I know we've had discussions about the state of the manosphere and all this other stuff, but that's what happens when you have separate groups that have similar interests come together and push for an agenda that's going to that they fully committed to actually come to fruition. We discussed what the benefits of a public bank was before, but this is a massive effort. This isn't a couple of guys sitting behind a keyboard or a couple of people sitting in the basement, with pie in the sky ideas. This is actually happening on the ground. What happens with black people in predominantly black neighborhoods is they have no other choice but to go to Western Union and Checks Cash and MoneyGram to go cash their checks, do their business, and get ripped off heavily in these areas.
Yep.
What's also happening is that the social equity programs that was uh, designed to aid black men who were affected by these social injustices by these drug laws, um, they're not able to actually tap into this market because they don't have the proper economic infrastructure in place. So
Facts.
all of this comes together at the end of the day, and things that need to be taken into consideration because it's easy for people to say, well, I'm gonna, if we just put our money together this, and if we just put our money together that, well, that's different than having an institution that is going to manage all this stuff.
Right.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
No,
no, no, no.
go ahead. No, go on. You go ahead.
I was going to say, no, 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 no. Go ahead, Complex, because you were kind of popping in. I'll go right after you. Go ahead, bro.
Okay. Just to follow up on what Mike's saying, man. um, you know, he made a really good point, right? When we talk about it's one thing to say put our money together, right? But you do need to have it. You have to have it in an institution, right? That can house the funds, and can allow you to do business, right? And have access to it, allow you to put deposits in it, pay payroll. You can't do all that through check cash in places, like as Mike said. So these types of institutions are very important, and just based on the all of the parties who are supporting that bill, if you notice, they span the spectrum. They completely span the spectrum, like Mike said. There's shared interest, even if you are in different venues. There's a shared interest, and that's where you have to find your alignments. It's not necessarily about being aligned from an ideological standpoint per se. It has more to do with what will best allow us to be able to transact and do business. And pretty much, if you have it doesn't matter what industry you're in, all businesses use a bank. All of them do. So even for some, if you were to go back, you don't have to bring up this the article, Mike, but if you were to go back and you read those lists of entities and groups that supported this bill, again, they're across the spectrum. It's not outside of the realm of the imagination that one of those groups could have been like black Black Tech Industrialists Association. That could have easily just been another one of those groups that supported this bill.
There
You
might
know
be
what I mean?
Transportation Alliance.
Exactly. Go ahead and go.
I mean, you covered some of those key points. I would say, some of the opposition would be the fact that, you know, the private banking institutions that have considerable dollars and wealth would be threatened by the public banking. And plus now you can really empower your community a lot more that way. And you could ultimately start building homes. You could start to really improve your community. And there are a lot of interests out here that do not want to see you do that. They don't want to see you succeed. They don't want to see you build schools and these types of things that your banks would be involved in. Black people, without question in my mind, once something like this would be adopted, would get into this deeply, deeply, and we would turn things over very quickly. Not to say that's a saving grace, but it's a powerful tool in being able to develop your own economics and really help to have your own community control and begin to really deal with issues of poverty, ignorance, and disease in your community, which so much of it revolves around economics. Not all of it, but a lot of it. And one of the key connections is between that economic institution and building up your schools and so forth, and helping you, of course, potentially get more into home ownership and building businesses in your community where you have a larger tax base in which to help to improve your systems that way. It's a powerful tool. It could be a very powerful tool, and there are those that don't want to see you have that. So I just want people to look at this from its political and socio economic impact, and of course the the communism and all of socialism and all those isms will come in to stigmatize that, of which, we've seen the public banking systems that have existed here in this country literally survive through the worst of times when other banks were shutting down and closing down. But yet they were left unmolested and very successful. And there is not much information on that. You don't hear much people speaking about that. And I saw Professor Richard Wolff going into some detail on this in one of his lectures, a lecture series a while back, and that's what got me really interested in it, because I had to say I was a little bit ignorant of some of the public banking system. I was aware that it did exist, but I was ignorant as far as much of the information that was really going around it, and why he thought it was a great idea, and how this has worked. And you can see what's going on in California with a lot of these bills that have come up, and how that is really a big issue, and how people really do want to see it because they know, and that's going to lighten the pockets of a lot of the private banks. It's going to
Hmm.
lighten their pockets immensely.
Well, two things, man. Mike mentioned before the big push came late 27, 2018, on the precipice of legalization, recreational
Yep.
legalization here in California. That's when it was like, look, we're about to do big business, okay? And if the Fed don't want to cooperate, then what we need to do is we need to go ahead and just have our own bank,
Yep.
right? Because think about how that would help businesses here, right? We're not talking about everywhere else. This is why this discussion is about public banks, localized banks, or on the state level. Think about how it can support business infrastructure in these states, and then if you break it on down just a little bit further, if we start to go into more of subsectors, again, now you're talking about your black chambers of commerce, your black business organizations, and all that type of stuff, and how they could then benefit from this. Just earlier today, Lionel and I, we did an impromptu hangout about Facebook's announcement on the Libra coin. Okay, and when we broke down all the details of it, Facebook is essentially just becoming a bank, a virtual bank, public bank, if you will, because the public has easy access to Facebook via just having a Facebook account. So even Facebook is even looking at the idea of public banking, but it's just in a different frame, but nonetheless public.
Very true. Very true. So anyway, it's a great option. It's something that we have to look at. We have to look at what can work for us. And there are many others who know this will work. And this is something that we should be talking deeply about in our communities. We do have banks, black banks in our community, but they don't serve as well because they're not as well funded. They're restricted by certain. They're restricted, I believe, and some of them are actually controlled more so by white banks than than by anything else. So if we really had a bank that really could serve our community specifically quite well, uh, that would be a huge benefit,
Yeah,
huge benefit for us.
yeah,
Instead of just saying, "Hey, let's pull all our resources together." You can really come up with good business ideas, show some good investors that are in there, a very strong idea. You can then get funded and start businesses, especially in this tech game and everything else like this. This is something I think that's needed.
yeah.
We need to examine this deeply.
Brooklyn Star has a
Yeah.
question here. What is the benefit of having a private bank versus a credit union? Now, you want to? I'm a firm believer in credit unions. That's all I use. But you want to speak to that one?
As far as a credit union is basically it's a bank, but really
It's
it's
member owned.
it's member owned, and it is done by the people that are part of that union. It could be health and hospitals work, SCIU, however.
Mm-hmm.
It's really more specific to to people who are a part of that, who are part of that union or part of that that large union business entity, and people who've been employed by that. They have a credit union that they put money into, and they can put savings accounts and IRAs and everything else like that. So it actually functions like it is a bank, and it functions under all the banking rules and regulations and everything else like that goes with any other any other bank or any other banking laws. But it really serves more people in that union. Can people who are not a part of that union go to that credit union and actually open up an account? You can,
Mm-hmm.
but some of the benefits that you'll get from the standpoint of IRAs and some of the other benefits that you have for being in that union, you will not get.
Yeah.
So that's really the only difference. But for all practical purposes, and for all practical purposes of this conversation here, it's a bank.
Yeah.
All right. Let me get to this next piece on the docket. All right, this one is from publicbankla.com. This is Trinity Tran. Sorry, Trinity Tran is the co-founder and lead organizer for Public Bank LA Revolution. Public Bank LA, Revolution LA, and Divest LA. The Divest LA coalition succeeded in pushing the city of Los Angeles to divest its finances from Wells Fargo Bank in December 2017. Public Bank LA led the grassroots Measure B campaign in the 2018 midterm general election in Los Angeles, securing over 430,000 votes in support of public banking. Trinity is a founding member of the California Public Banking Alliance, CBPA, a statewide coalition of grassroots public banking advocacy groups. She is a board member of the Urban Partners Los Angeles, a nonprofit organization dedicated to uplifting the lives of underprivileged communities in Los Angeles through food and educational resources. So she, I put her on the docket because she has been instrumental in
Yes.
SoCal, and I guess that in SoCal, in really getting stuff popping out there in terms of injustice, social injustices. I said this at the beginning of the hangout that and she's pretty as hell. I said this at the beginning of the hangout that I do social justice work out here too. I've worked with Ujima. I'm now working with Mass Mesh, which is a public Wi-Fi mesh-based system. Um, work with other anti-colonialist groups, indigenous groups. Everybody's having this conversation except for African Americans. And when I hear
Mm.
people, yell out these hashtags and always talking about, putting super chat money together and, what if we did this? What if we did that? Well, other people are thinking along the same lines, but they're thinking on a bigger scale. They're thinking on a very, they're thinking about the scalability of this initiative and the agenda itself. How far can they go with this and what do they want from it? Whereas with black people, they're just saying, I'm sick and tired of being poor and I'm just sick and tired of being poor. Well,
It- yeah.
that's
Yeah.
nice that you express yourself in that way, but what are some of the objectives that are going to come out of your sick and tiredness?
Yeah, and you got the other thing with her too. That push for the whole Wells Fargo thing had to do largely with it being discovered that Wells Fargo was creating false accounts, for false credit card accounts and doing all kind of fraudulent shit to a lot of its account holders. Okay, so in order to really push for some sort of measure to punish them, because you already know a lot of these big banks get slapped on the wrist. Okay, when they do some faulty shit, they get it's nothing but a little bit of a slap on the wrist. But see, when you push for an entire city to basically divest from the bank and just basically say, look, you know what? y'all can't be doing business with them anymore. And the city follows suit, starts yanking accounts away and says, look, we're going to go put our money elsewhere. Okay. That's actionable. That's real action being taken. And there's the idea of things, and then there's the active measures that you're going to take. And that's what Mike is speaking to. There's the idea of a thought, that's talked about, and it's talked about ad nauseum, quite frankly. And then there's what moves are you going to actually make? Those are discussions you don't typically hear. What are we going to do? It's not just this pie in the sky idea of like, yeah, this would be great, but to go from that to then going to the city and saying, look, pull your money out of Wells Fargo. Okay. That's a power move.
Mm-hmm. Nagon, you were gonna say something?
No, 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 no. I wasn't. I was just, as far as the whole Wells Fargo thing and all that was going to, a lot of these banks are scamming us, and they're running all kind of ill games to, to make money. And the public bank, something like that couldn't happen like that. That kind of stuff couldn't go on. You're answerable to your shareholders who are the public, so you can't play that game. You're immediately answerable to that. So all that scamming and stuff that these private banks run, I believe these banks need to be cut back to the fat meat. I look at I'm with one black bank right now, Carver, and then I'm with the white bank and as well. And the white bank institution, these guys are sitting here, charging these ridiculous fees. I was with Wells Fargo and I stepped out of there. I was like, nah, man, you guys are illin', you know, just snatching stuff. And I would just look at all these fees they were snatching every month, and not that it was huge as far as what I had in the bank, but I was sitting there saying, what is this?
What
What are
is
all
it?
these
Why
fees?
are you charging me for this? What are we charging me for this?
Are you guys kidding me? I mean, are you guys for real? I'm 95,000, baby, and it was kind of like that. So I'm really very much for a public banking system, um, especially in our community, where we could get a lot of benefit from it, and then to start having people who can now put their money into accounts, small accounts, and start out where they can open up their accounts easily, where they're not getting nailed constantly, and they got small deposits. It's not like you got some bank in there chewing up. You could have your money just sitting there and just get, it'll go to zero without you doing anything. For them grabbing fees for what? I mean, are you kidding me? Nah, man. We got to have something else that works for us. Not that rapacious game that these private banks are playing
Yeah.
at this stage of the game. So, I have a lot of issues with just what's going on. This country is designed to take you away from your money, to take money from you, and I think it's all about money should be invested in people, in ideas, and properties, and in institutions, and so forth, to really to gain maximum benefit. And I think that public trust and all that from the banking system today is just not there, especially not for us.
Hmm.
And I think that's important that you mentioned that, Nagon, that you do also bank with a black bank, because I do too.
Yeah,
And I have account with a traditional bank. I also have one with a black bank.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that
Yeah,
less fees. One of these guys are my golfing partners. So I know him. He's vice president of the bank. So so I've got a little connect there, and he's helping us out, and doing some other things and in real estate and so forth. So I found them kind of helpful, and I found that the brothers, if it can be helpful if you are if if you're in a position where they can help you. I mean, um, whereas Chase and City and some of these other places I have found to be not that friendly. So
Let
it's
me let me let
well,
me correct myself. It's not a black bank; it's a black credit union. Sorry about that.
yeah. Mine's back. Oh, and I also want to say, um, with respect to Black Uhuru, he mentioned, credit unions also, are not, do not charge fees and get certain kind of profits that other banks have, and that is true. So credit
Yep.
unions are not
Yep.
really strictly designed for that. So I just wanted to, make that clear as well.
Yeah. And
Anybody out
because
there?
they're member owned, you typically are going to get better rates.
Yep.
Mm.
You're typically going to get better. That's why I'm a firm believer in credit unions, and that's largely just all I've used. I've, well, not to get too many details, but for my business, that uses a bank, and that's for specific reasons. But for me personally, my personal accounts are all with credit unions.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. I bank with One United. I think it's probably one of the oldest black banks, if I
Yep,
remember correctly.
yep, yep.
Yep.
So I have a account with them as well. So they treated me well, so I can't complain about them. So much for black customer service being poor. Um, Let me get to this next one on the docket. This one is from NewYorkTimes.com. Could public banks help cities keep their money away from Wall Street? When a
Big on, I'm
ballot
pretty sure you
measure,
have a lot to say about that one.
You know it. You know it.
when a
You
ballot me-
know it. Go ahead.
when a ballot measure that would have allowed Los Angeles to start its own public bank was rejected by the city's voters last year, even proponents of the idea acknowledged that it was a little far out. Get one of the nation's largest cities to take the billions of dollars it deposits in big commercial banks and instead park that money in a financial institution that would invest it back into things like affordable housing. It sounded like a progressive pipe dream, but as supporters have said, the seed was planted, and now, amid rising anger at the state's gaping economic inequality, the idea has gotten new momentum with an assembly bill that's making its way through the state legislature. The bill AB 857 would create process for local governments to start their own public banks if they choose to. Currently, California cities turn over hundreds of billions of taxpayer dollars to our country's largest Wall Street banks, who invest our money in industries antithetical to our state's values and policies. Assemblyman David Chewy, one of the bill's authors, told me. This is an idea driven by millions of consumers who, in recent years, have experienced predatory lending, foreclosures, student loan debt, lack of access to small business capital, and having millions of fake accounts open in their names. Wells Fargo. Mr. Chewy and others have pointed to the century-old Bank of North Dakota as a potential alternative model. The California Public Banking Alliance listed a roster of endorsements, including from some of the state's largest cities. Still, experts and observers have cautioned that starting a new bank and figuring out the priorities of such an institution could be expensive, time consuming, and yield questionable returns. Even if banks even if public banks don't invest in companies that say deal in fossil fuels, they still have to invest in things that will grow the city's money over time. And affordable housing may not make as much money. The Los Angeles Times editorial board slammed AB 857 as setting the stage for a massive waste of time, government resources. California Bankers Association called it misguided, according to CNBC. And although San Francisco's recent municipal bank feasibility task force report didn't take in, didn't take a position on whether city leaders should press ahead with a city-owned bank, it said that starting one has significant short-term costs, as well as significant but uncertain payout in the long term. David Jett, the legislative director for Public Bank LA, said many of the predictions about how high startup costs were overblown in part because there isn't currently a regulatory framework for municipal banks. Mr. Chewy's bill would help solve that, he said. In any case, he said something has to change. We are the richest country in history of mankind, Mr. Jett said, and we cannot solve the intractable problems of inequality and homelessness. This is just basically rehashing
Mhm.
what we covered before, but it's people are talking and they're talking at with a lot of bass in their voice. uh, they're very dissatisfied with the current banking model. It seems that people want to protect private institutions to waste their money on things that they have no say in. The whole purpose of a public bank is to bring democracy into into economics of the people. And if you
Mhm.
have a bank that is private and you don't have any say in what's going on, and your tax dollars actually pays for that bank to exist, and you're not getting any say in it, that's taxation without representation.
Yep. And Mike, the other thing too, man, is that you'll notice that a lot of these articles, for people that are listening, a lot of these articles are based on a lot of the discussions that are had out here in the state of California. And the reason the reason why this is such a hot button topic right now out here is because you got to realize California has, I think to my knowledge, I think we're at like either number 6 or number 7 as far as global GDP. Okay, the GDP just in the state of California alone, we're talking about rival is up there in the list of nations. Their entire GDP. Okay, the state of California alone, its GDP is probably like around number 6 or number 7. So this state generates a lot of money. And when you don't have a way to be able to kind of coalesce it here, right? So it all just again, even with the growth, with the GDP that California does generate, it's still privy and subject to all of the parasitic banking practices. This is why, for all the money that this state has, downtown LA has full of homeless folks, the majority of which are black. It's the reason why we have these type of issues.
Black
The
men,
reason
black men.
black men. Yeah, thank you, black men. If you go down to downtown LA, trust me, your boy is from there. Okay, I can speak to this shit. And a number of brothers down there, man. There's a number of brothers in downtown LA homeless, no access to any sort of capital, any sort of resources, right, that could lift them up out of that. Okay, they are largely put there because of things like foreclosures on their homes, stuff like that. Why? Because mortgages were through these banks that were largely bailed out, right? There was no sort of localized protections in place. So this is the reason why when you come to California, you kind of look at some of the problems that we have. You say, well, look, man, how's this state generating so much money, but y'all got so much homelessness and stuff? It's because if we could actually control the banking that took place here, things might look a little bit different. So this in addition to a number of other things. I'm gonna circle back around to it because Mike brought it up. Cannabis. It's another reason why California has a keen interest in this type of stuff, amongst a myriad of other reasons. But the thing is about like homelessness and a lot of the social issues, stuff like that. That's one. And then, given that California is a market leader in terms of like cannabis and stuff like that, that's another reason why you would have keen interest in being able to control the flow of capital. If you control like let's say if you control like a national market, or you're a large portion of a national market share, you would the idea of being able to kind of being able to control those resources as they flow in and out, that would be beneficial to you. That would be beneficial to you. And because of that, you could then address some of the social issues that you are dealing with, i.e., homelessness and stuff like that.
Yep, that's it. With those banks that got paid a lot of money just to be reckless and do whatever. They did get bailed out. You had one or two that got closed or taken over by a few others, and they got absorbed, and everybody walked away clean, and many of the homeowners and so forth who had these giant balloon payments coming up and all this craziness that they had going on. People say, well, if they're false, they shouldn't have gotten into it. Well, I can agree with certainly some of that, but they put that in front of them, they sold it to them, pushed it on them, predatory about it. That there was a little false advertising in some of what had gone on, and people who were first-time homeowners and so forth were not as sophisticated as they should have been. So you don't take advantage of of people. So I think there was a lot of that went on, and in the public banking type of situation, that wouldn't happen. You wouldn't see that. So,
It goes against the narrative of predatory banking, right? If it's if,
of
if it's
course,
public, right? Yeah,
because now you're answerable to the people who you're lending to. You're answerable to that.
bingo, bingo.
That's the whole thing. There's accountability here, and you're accountable to the public, and the public are the ones who can vote you in and out of what's going on. That's what people don't want. They don't want that. So that's what the banking cartel doesn't want. They don't want to see that. So it is strictly based on profits and what they can do, and they are operating above the law in many respects. So even large types of crimes can go on, and they can be unprosecutable for it. So this has to be dealt with, and I think that this is a good prophylaxis against a lot of that as well. So that's why I think that's why we see such strong interest, and that's coming not only just for where we feel it will be excellent for Black people, but you're seeing other groups who see the massive benefits in this as well. Um,
Yep.
yeah.
All right, let me jump to this next article. I'm not going to read all of it. This one is from the San Jose Inside.com. San Jose considers whether to back public banking bill AB 857. Once again, AB 857 is a hot topic. San Jose's elected leaders are debating whether to endorse a state bill that would give Californians an alternative to mega banks like Wells Fargo and Citibank, companies increasingly under scrutiny over ethical lapses, wage theft, and dubious investments. AB 857, introduced by Assemblyman Miguel Santiago and David Shuey, would enable local governments to charter their own public banks, with the bill currently wending wending its way through state legislator. Um, sorry, wending its way through the state legislature. The San Jose City Council on Tuesday will decide whether to grant its official endorsement of the measure, which could lay the foundation for a first of its kind public bank in Silicon Valley. Unlike the shareholder run counterparts in the private sector, public banks would be wholly owned by government entities such as city, county, and joint powers authority. The public owned alternatives would offer banking services to unbanked or underbanked populations and partner with other local financial institutions such as credit unions and smaller community banks.
Ooh, ooh.
The they would also save taxpayers money by dispensing with the costly management fees charged by private institutions. According to Chewy and Santiago, public bank funds, just like all banks in the United States, would be insured by the FDIC, Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. Council members Magdalena uh, Carrasco, Sergio Jimenez, and Raul Perales, who teamed up earlier this year to push for public banking option, said the idea has a long history in the U.S. The Bank of North America, North, sorry, North Dakota, widely considered a model for public option, was established exactly a century ago in response to farmers' revolt against out-of-state banks foreclosing on their properties.
There you
So,
go.
That's why
if
that
you
was
need
founded.
more if you need more justification as to why this is important, this is exactly that one sentence points out everything. When you talk about gentrification, gentrification would be somewhat null and void because of a public institution like this, because you have public housing that goes with it.
And in the scenario that they're talking about right there, what you would need, to get to basically open up an account with a California with the public bank in California under the AB 85 whatever I'm trying to the bill number. You just basically would need
857.
857. You would just basically need a California ID, a driver's license, or just a state ID,
Mhm.
and that you open up your account.
And then you wouldn't, and then people wouldn't have to worry about also, getting hit with a lot of excessive fees because what a lot of black people don't have bank accounts because they keep small amounts of dollars around. They may not have enough money, to keep an account open, but they'll be in there. Let's say you put a couple $100 in there and you're not spending it. The next thing you know, you over 6 or 7 months, you don't have any money left. Based on what? You know what I mean? It's ill. It's ill. So that kind of stuff has to be shut down. You got to shut that down. I mean, that's got to be cut back to the fat meat, and that's why I feel, that's why we all feel that this would be good. It definitely would benefit the community for sure.
Well, Black Rule is right. Black Rule says, I fear that political and regulatory actions would greatly limit the potential benefits of public banking. Uh, I mean that. Well, the whole thing is that public banking is actually the countermeasure to that, right? Because
Mm.
the political and regulatory actions have been happening on the private banking scale,
Yep.
where they again they get off with so much as a slap on the wrist for largely foreclosing on black homeowners. Because as Mike spoke to, like that's and you go to downtown LA and you go see who's homeless down there. It is literally like 90% black men. Okay, and these are people who shoot. I would even say since the recession hit in 2008, they were at one point they were homeowners. These are people who lived in certain sections of LA that are now more mixed and diverse some 10, 11 years later. I wonder why. But I think a public banking option, if it were in place, would have staved off a lot of that, and that's evidenced by the whole reasoning behind using the North Dakota model. And that the whole point of that was to prevent from out of state banks and private banks from foreclosing on
On
farmland.
farms, on
Yeah,
farms.
yeah.
That was there exactly to do that. And plus, anything that political that comes up that you really talk about has to go with inside of the bank first, and then you have your people voting on that as well. So that's a way to get around a lot of that. So you have to look at that thing for what it is. It's actually a buttress against the public bank's fuckery. I mean, the private bank's fuckery that they've been getting away with that you can't get away with a public bank.
There's a higher
And
level of accountability with a
a
public
high
bank.
level of accountability. You have to be, and so money's not going to be expended and moved in very crazy and ill ways. That's not going to happen. Remember that bank was established in 1919, 29, when banks were big, were closed down on them. People were getting torn out of the frame. All right. What happened? What happened with that bank? That bank didn't have a problem. Why? Why? Why didn't it have a problem?
Mhm.
So these are the things you have to sit back and look at. It's putting more control in your hands. Exactly what people don't want you to have. Because
Black Rule says the bank.
if it's in their
Oh,
hands,
good.
they're gonna get you. But anyway, go ahead, man.
I was going
Go
to say
ahead.
Black Rule says the banking industry will lobby and fund politicians to do their bidding to steer the laws and regulations to limit what the public bank can do. Well, you got to understand, it's the politicians here in the state of California that are actually pushing for this.
Yeah.
So they're not doing the bidding of it, and there's no I got and I'm here in California, so I can tell you there really is. You got to understand what happened. Look, okay, so the recession that hit, it hit everyone. But when you look at the state of California, because it's big, because of the amount of money that's here, because of a lot of other factors that really don't come into play in like say like a state like New Mexico, for example, or some of the smaller states. Look, we are still largely dealing with some of the after effects of the recession that hit from 11 years ago. Again, I would invite you to come out to California and go hang out in downtown LA for a day or two, and you'll see why there is a push on the state level to make this happen, and this has been in place. You've had interests fight this, because this isn't the first time that California has tried to do this. Just again to go back to what Mike was saying, I mean, the whole cannabis thing was a large reason why there was an initial push, but extended from that, there's the other benefits that would come about in just having a public banking system here, not necessarily just to accommodate the cannabis industry here, but again to address shit like the homelessness. You can't get. I don't give a shit like who comes in and says, hey, look, that public banking stuff, that's just not good and we don't want that. Who gives a shit? If you're here in California, you're bothered by what you see here with the homelessness. Everybody sees it, man.
It's a public health issue.
Thank you.
Public
Yes.
health, right? So now you're talking about how do you address public health with public funds. Same thing with welfare, right? Welfare is publicly funded. Well, guess what? A lot of the behavior that a lot of these guys in the manosphere can't stand so much would actually be curbed through initiatives from that very institution. They can determine who's going to get funded and who's not going to get funded, and how it's going to be, how the operation is going to work. But if you don't even have this conversation like we're having right now, you can never solve the issues that you can't stand so much that you see every single day on YouTube. You got
Eh,
to actually have an institution that's going to challenge that.
right. And let me tell you this too. Like at this particular junction, we have what's her name? The sister Tran. Okay. You think she's the only
Trinity.
one? Yeah, yeah. Tiffany. You think she's the only one? I mean, look, they moved to get the city to move a lot of its accounts out of Wells Fargo. Okay, there was no big bank backed politician who was able to stop that. Okay, there's too many things. Okay, put it like this. Let's look at the optics of this. If you have like an election runoff, right, and you got two people that are running against each other, and one says, "Hey, look, what we're trying to do here is establish this public bank because there's a homeless issue, and because there's a homeless issue, there's a public health issue. There's all these other issues that extend outward, right? Drug abuse issue. So all these other issues. Okay. And then the opposing politician says, well, let's not go there. Let's look at how we can address these problems, with other measures. But I don't think that, utilizing a public bank is the way to do it. Okay. The politician who says that, he's not getting anywhere with that shit. That's not even that wouldn't even be something that would fly in the state of California with the constituency here. It wouldn't. Even Republicans they're not ignorant to what's going on. They see it. They see what's going on out here in the streets. Something has to be done, and if we don't have the institutions to address it, we're going to continue to have what we're having. So this kind of extends beyond um this extends beyond just general politics. This is a public issue, and a public bank offers a lot of solutions for it.
Mhm. And it doesn't have to be traditional, like your brick and mortar. I mean, it would be brick and mortar because you have to store the money somewhere, but we have to take into consideration the emerging techs. Lionel talks extensively, like he did today, about cryptocurrencies. These are factors that are going to play into this new public banking system. So now, people who only had $5 or $10 to put in, or $20 to put in to their name, we could actually compensate these people with crypto tokens, or cryptocurrency, as a form of a bond, a treasury bond. So now black people can have their own treasury bonds, their own treasury notes in the guise of cryptocurrencies. And because of the fluctuation and volatility of a cryptocurrency, the value is going to shoot up the more people that put into it.
Man, we just covered, Mike. We just covered how that how Facebook is modeling the Libra coin to do just that, because there's actually going to be two coins, right? One is going to be a general use, the other is a security. It's an investment, just like you said. So it's not as if there's not, this model isn't already out there and in deployment. Facebook is going to be the, to my knowledge, they're going to be the first to do it. And in looking at it, there, you know, the key primary investors involved bringing the $10 million to the table or more, you know, if they so choose to, has basically put, I think at initial count was 28 investors, and if you were to go just based on the bare minimum of your investment buy-in, which was $10 million, that's $280 million to back the initiative, right? To head off any sort of major fluctuations, to stabilize the coin. Now the goal is to get up to 100, and I think based on today's news, looking at some of the stock movements and stuff like that, I think that Facebook will easily be able to amass $1 billion to stabilize their token. So
Right, and
there's
now,
go ahead. Go ahead.
no, go right ahead and finish. Finish what you were
Oh no,
saying.
that's it. I mean, I was just pointing out that Facebook already released the white paper on the Libra coin, and we went into it today, and we broke the whole thing down. So what you were talking about, Facebook just put it's in their white paper, and we discussed it today earlier.
Right, and we, take into consideration digital wallets now. Um, People have being connected to their banks through the emerging tech. Um, Smart contracts, all types of variations of this emerging tech that's going to come out of it. Data integrity. So now we have to uphold the integrity of the data because we all have to play by the same rules of regulatory standards, such as the SEC and things of that nature. Um, and digital identity, right? So now blockchain comes in to this black public bank in places like Detroit, in places like Atlanta, and these places, and you have all this emerging tech that's going to minimize a lot of these cascading security issues that auditors are going to look at. So now, the AML, the anti-money laundering inspectors that are going to come in and say, hey, you guys are not doing your job correctly. Well, actually, let me point you to this blockchain where it has a distributed ledger that's going to tell you that we've been doing our job. There's a whole lot of opportunity that can come out of these discussions. So that's why I wanted to have this discussion tonight.
And I think it's very key that we do at this point, because again, that Facebook announcement, in addition also to the announcement that Ripple is partnering with MoneyGram.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, man, these are major moves being made. So, we're starting to see where the convergence of blockchain and cryptocurrency and the traditional financial markets are now starting to truly commingle. So this is no longer a pie in the sky discussion. This is no longer a theoretical thing. This is actually a real thing now.
Yeah. It's something that has to be dissected. It has to be, you have to actually have a conversation about it to really understand it. All the intricate details that go behind it. We covered Trinity Tran out in LA, putting in lots of work, being on board, being a board member of several of the working groups for fighting for injustice. It, again, when I go do some of this social justice work, I rarely see black people partake in it. Very rarely. They're just not having these conversations. They make a lot of noise by complaining, but they're just not having the conversation. And it's very important that you have these conversations because between now, 2019, and 2050, this is the only window of opportunity that you're going to have. And once that window closes, you SOL.
Yeah, if
Yeah,
the necessary moves ain't been made, it's a wrap.
and what I want to say is this is relevant to us every right now on an everyday basis. This is relevant to us right now. This is not, some pie in the sky stuff down the line, talking about, well, this will happen in a few years. This is relevant to every black person here right now, today. So it's something that we need to think about. I see Black Uhuru just he believes that the billions of the banking institutions will just come in and it'll shut it down and it's not going to happen. But like I said, we've got precedents for another bank, and that's not the only publicly owned bank in this country that has been around for quite some time. We're
100
just
years.
using we're just using that as an example, as one example. But those banks have been around,
Right.
and they're kicking. All right,
And
so
it,
you have to look at that and understand why they're there and why they have been successful for so long. The other banks that are going to try to come in, they're not going to be able to hit it like you think. If you say that the systems are flimsy and so forth, why are they flimsy? Why are these banking institutions or these other ones flimsy? You have to ask yourself why that is and why those other banking institutions that are public are not flimsy. You have to ask
and
yourself that question. You have to think through this a little bit as you ask these questions, Black Guru.
well, and the other thing too is, again, I understand that banks have influence. I get that, but you also have to. Again, I would invite you to come to LA and go hang out for a weekend in downtown LA. You cannot, as a public, you can't get away from the sight that you see. You can't get away
I
from the
think he's
sight
in
that you
Oakland.
see. What's that, Mike?
I think he's in Oakland.
With Black Guru?
Yeah, I think he's in. I believe he's out there.
Well, if he's out there, then shit. I mean, look, go. You don't have to look no further than San Francisco. You don't have to look no further than San Francisco to get a feel of what I'm talking about. And I don't know what's going on up there, but down here, look, people are like, "Yo, this ain't good. This is not good." And I'm saying, when you got sisters like Tiffany Tran pushing to have, city government institutions move their money out of the same banks that you're talking about that won't allow for any changes, what is this telling you? What is it telling you when the cities are like, nah, man, we out of here, man? Like, look, we can't do it. We're getting too much heat from our own constituency over this.
Hmm. Hmm. I don't know how LA's run, but I know that in Boston, they've basically created an app for City Hall. So any sort of business that you need to do with City Hall, such as pay taxes, excise taxes, and pay citations, and so on and so forth, all that is done by an app now. You got a boot on your car, you need to get that off. There's an app for that. There's a pothole in the street that needs to be
Hmm.
taken care of. There's an app for that.
Hmm.
You take a picture of it, you upload it to the app. The app takes builds out a ticket for you. You get a email saying that this ticket has been opened. Someone has to address it within the next 24 hours. And if not, the ticket gets stale and it, sends off alerts and things like that to the city that they need to come out here and come take care of this issue. So there are ways of leveraging democracy with emerging tech. So we're not just talking about you need to go find some bricklayers and guys who can do masonry and things like that, and electrical engineers who are going to wire up the building up to code. That's the brick and mortar portion of a public bank. When you start talking about the intellectual property and the digital logistics of it, that can actually be done fairly easily,
Now we're talking fintech.
right? Which is what a public bank would actually be. Now you're talking about public transportation. How do your kids get back and forth to school? How do you create measures that are going to keep people employed, but at the same time use the public funds, um, to the best interest of the people.
You wouldn't
There's
be
a
able
lot
to.
that has to be discussed.
Yeah, you wouldn't. You just. It's impossible to do that through private banking institutions. It's just not going to happen. It has to be
Right.
done through
And
public
that's
institutions.
and that's why we had a hangout before, and I talked about building an innovation lab. An innovation lab, which would be basically a maker lab, would be publicly funded because it's a learning institution. So it falls under public schools because public schools are a learning institution. Public libraries are a learning institution.
Yep, yep, yep.
Your community colleges are learning institutions. So you can leverage the funding that typically would have went to those institutions to create this sort of innovation lab that's going to allow you to create drones, next generation drones and autonomous vehicles and micro transportation and things of that nature, street furniture that's compliant with zero carbon footprints. All that's going to be funded by public banks, your public bank.
Wells Fargo is not
So
going to do it.
The city of Boston collects something like $1.3 million per day just off of parking violations and collections.
Damn, how much?
I think it's like $1.3 million a day.
Oh, for parking tickets and shit. Damn.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, I haven't looked.
10%
I haven't looked
every
into
time
what
you leave.
LA makes. I haven't looked into what LA makes, but yeah, it might be actually somewhere in the same ballpark.
I mean, yeah, I mean they make a lot of money off that. I remember one year in New York City they towed 4 million cars.
Wow.
And listen to me, 4 million cars in 1 year towed.
hmm
Take a look what kind of cash that would be.
hmm
Mm-hmm.
Because it costs. I know in Boston it costs $160 to get your car off a lot once it's towed.
Yeah, well, it's 300, three,
Shit, I was gonna
three,
say in California, it's
three
it's
and a
like
half.
300. It's like 300 for
Yeah,
like
three
the
and a half.
first 2 days, and then after that, it's like $30 a day.
Three and a half, man. Don't play around.
hmm
I mean, they grabbed my daughter's car right in front of where she, in front of her college one day. She was going to take a test and snatched the ride, snatched the car. I was like, you guys some vultures. Felt like choking somebody. but this is what they do.
hmm
It's ill.
Yeah, a lot of money is being wasted, and a lot of people don't know it. You
It's
got guys
facts.
who are supposed to be picking up trash, guys who are supposed to be sanitation workers, supposed to be picking up trash. They're sitting in their trucks, not doing nothing. Your tax dollars are being wasted, and yet the responses that you get for a public bank are like, oh, this is pie in the sky. This is a waste of time. It's a liberal pipe dream. It's a progressive pipe dream. We just need to keep things the same. So you're okay with private institutions wasting your money, but you're not okay with public institutions utilizing your funds, the tax dollars and whatnot, to the best interest of people who look like you. I find that to be bizarre.
Well, a lot of people are ignorant of some of the facts, and some are just plain stupid. So that's just kind of what we're looking at. You have those who are ignorant of what's going on. Then you have those that are, unfortunately, are mental midgets and are stupid and can't.
Hey, we got a
They think
couple of
it's normal.
comments here, and a couple of comments in the chat here with regards to the situation up in the Bay in Oakland. Yeah, that's what I thought. Black Rule. He's in I think he's in Chicago. That's where I thought he was from. Flighter Boy 8419 says I live in Oakland. It ain't good there. Elika Spain, yeah, Oakland is no joke. Yeah, I mean, because I'm from LA, but I would be up in the Bay, every so often, man, just visiting folks up there and stuff. And the scene is it's the same. Quite frankly, you see the same things up there that you see down here in LA. So yeah,
hmm
we're looking at the same problems.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. This is I guess a new area of dialogue for Black people. For whatever reason, it seems to be a new area. But when reading the articles and people I've talked to on the ground, especially the indigenous population, they've been talking about this for a minute. And actually, they've been making moves on this for a minute. When they make moves, them moves are ill. They take land back, land reclamation. They get busy out there, man. And when I see the way how they move, they got farms, and now they create these sort of what do you call those shares? I think that's what they call them for a farm. I think they call them shares, so that they can distribute a lot of the fruits and vegetables and produce that they have. They think from a very ground level community aspect, whereas when I communicate with black people about this type of stuff, it's always I got to get mine before you get yours. And I think that's such a toxic mentality to have if you're talking about countering what you consider to be injustices against you.
Hey, Mike Blackroo, he has a question for you, and I think this pertains to the collection on the tickets and stuff you were just mentioning in Boston when they're pulling in was like 1 million something a day. He asked who actually owns the receipts, the government, or have they sold or leased the rights to collect that money to a corporation?
No, they own it. 100% they own it. Because what happens if you don't pay it, that doesn't go away. They got a digital system now. I wouldn't be surprised if they have something similar to blockchain where they keep a record of all that stuff. But if you don't pay your bills, you can't renew your license. If you don't renew your license, and if you don't pay your bills, you can't register a new vehicle. So there's all types of cascading effects as to how this is being impacted on the person.
So
Same thing.
so it doesn't just go,
Or
it doesn't
they
just go to
will,
collections. It doesn't
or,
just go to collections, for
or
example.
they will suspend your license as well. Through the DMV,
Yeah.
they can suspend your
Oh
license.
yeah. If you don't pay, yeah. If you're back 90 days on any of that stuff, you get a boot. And if they already took your car, they'll suspend your license.
Damn.
Like I said, they'll haul you into court. They'll get a search warrant. They'll get an arrest warrant and pick you up for that.
Well, for tickets, I know for here for tickets like that, they can't, they won't put an arrest warrant on you. What they will do is they'll suspend your license, and if you're driving around, and let's say they can't boot your car because you're in a place and now you have a suspension on your license, then they can arrest you if you get pulled over and you find that your license is suspended.
That's kind
Well,
of
they
like
know
that's kind of
now
how
to
it is in
go.
California. Yeah.
Yeah, but they know now to go because of these cameras that they have. They know if your license is suspended before you even get out the car. I guess there's some
Oh
kind
yeah,
of
yeah.
RFID
That came from Homeland Security, where you see those like cameras on the back of the cars now. That kind of sit like these tubular kind of cameras that sit on the rear end of these cars of these police
Yep,
cruisers. Yeah,
yep.
that can read whether your car is insured, whether it's currently insured, whether your license plates are expired, you know, that type of thing. They can't necessarily see if your license is suspended because they don't know who the driver might be, but they can just look at the
You look at the record on the car.
they can look
Yeah.
at the record. They can look
Yeah.
at the record on the vehicle. So if your registration is lapsed, or if your insurance is lapsed, these types of things they can get that readout on. They can get that readout on your vehicle. Um, you know, that's for sure.
Oh, and which one?
You
DE
know what?
said. Oh, I was just reading a comment. DE said all government entities in the U.S. are corporations and they operate that way. Tickets isn't. Oh no, I'm aware of that. We were kind of addressing Black Uru's question as to whether it's the actual city government, right? The city these government entities that own the receipts on this, or private entities. That was kind of like the distinction we were trying to make with regards to what's going on in Boston. I think that was where Black Rule was kind of like asking who owns what on that end.
No, they own that stuff from soup to nuts. They don't play because they make a lot of money off that stuff. Then if you don't come get your car after 90 days or after 45 days, they auction your car off and they make a profit off it too.
Yep. And
I
then
think out
Black.
in LA, if you get caught racing, I think out in LA, if you get caught racing, they crush your vehicle when they catch it.
Dude, they crush your shit, bro. They crush it. Straight up. They crush your shit. Yeah.
That's
Yeah, they
ill.
crush your shit.
Oh no.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Don't
Black
get
Crew
don't get
also
caught don't
said,
get caught racing.
yeah, no, do it legally, man. Just go to the track, dude.
Yep. Okay.
He said they have the same setup in Chicago, except Chicago sold the rights to collect. Yeah. Because Black Crew, I was in Chicago for a few years, man. Is madness, and you're absolutely right because
Hmm.
they privatized like the cameras that do the ticketing, right?
Hmm.
They had to be they had to basically sue, right, to get that shit out of there because it was a private company that was running it, that was running the whole operation, and the cameras were just flashing people like as they sat there at a red light,
Hmm.
and so if you put it in the hands of a private institution, that's what you get. You get cameras that'll flash you and ticket you even though you were sitting at a red light. Now, Black Rua, can you, yeah, all the same thing happens in Chicago. Did I think they got rid of that, right? If you can answer that in the chat, man. I think they got rid of that because of I think there was literally a suit with regards to that, and basically they revoked that the company that was operating those cameras, they revoked the operator's license. If I'm not mistaken, if Black Roo, if he wants to correct me on that.
Yeah, I mean they've been talking about putting these license plate readers in urban centers, to basically make you pay by plate just to drive downtown. So you imagine if they put something like that in Manhattan, where everything is popping off, and if you want to pass through Manhattan, I'm not even sure the streets in Manhattan to get up and down, outside of Wall Street. They can charge you, $20-$25 just to come through, and there's nothing you can do about that. You just don't
God.
have any say.
Yeah. Well, they're looking to get that whole thing set up to cut traffic down, and you can ride up Fifth
Hmm.
Avenue and go all the way down to Manhattan and go down through Wall Street and ride through there. But you're gonna have to have like a almost like an easy pass type of thing, so you can go through there and get through and roll, and it's gonna charge you to roll through there. It's gonna be fairly expensive to drive down that way, and if you're not set like that, you can get pulled over and ticketed and torn out the frame. So
Hmm.
that's what the city is looking to do, and cut a lot of traffic down and make you pay to drive through these congested areas.
Yeah.
So
But
it is what it is. That's why I say if I was living down in downtown Manhattan, I would not own a car.
nope.
I would have a nice bike, and
An Uber.
Uber every now and then, but you would jump on the train, and that's a lot of guys say you don't need a car. You know,
Yeah. Fly the boy, he says
Yeah.
same thing in Oakland. They had something but got rid of it. And then Black Roo says, okay, yeah, they modified it. He said, no, it's still there, but they modified it. You can still get electronically ticketed. Chicago also sold the rights to collection on its toll roads. Hmm.
Hmm.
The more reasons
Yeah.
why privatization of things that support like municipal services and municipal functions should not be in the hands of private institutions. This should all be in a public venue.
Hmm.
It really in order to stave off and to not have to deal with these sorts of things. This is the reason why, again, like things like public banks are very important.
All types of public institutions, because if public banks wouldn't fund prisons, I mean, you think about the cost of a prison bed, for an inmate, anywhere between $35,000 to $50,000. I think in New York they're paying something like $80,000 to keep somebody in Rikers. It's ridiculous. Why would somebody pay that kind of money for such petty crime? It doesn't make any sense.
I mean, there's more. There's I remember there was a study where they said, well, look, it costs more it costs more to imprison someone than to educate them. It costs more money to imprison them than to train them for a job. Like the cost of of uh of just imprisoning someone. The cost is way higher than it is to actually take corrective measures to produce a functioning member of society.
Well, it's a business now. You got
Yeah.
privatization of
Yep.
prisons and so
Yep.
forth. It's a business. It's a very profitable business, and it's a new cottage industry. So it's a fairly new industry as far as from the prison for profit game. But it's a it's a business. It is a
Hmm.
business, and that's why you are warehousing more people. You know, in the Western world than any other country that we know. I think outside of maybe Russia, I think, or I'm not sure, but China has, 1 billion people, and they've jailed less people. So, but
Yeah.
then again,
Yeah.
it's not an economic piece.
Yeah.
But here, we're a savage, rapacious country in many respects with regard to some of these things, and we need some laws against that as well.
Black Guru, are you speaking about the dailies? Just curious. Go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say that to what Nagone was saying. I actually forgot now, but when it comes to prison, prison industrial complex being a business, everybody's in on it. All the private institutions are in on it. Aramark, Sodexo, I think that's the name of them, name of that company
Yeah, yeah, Sodexo.
that does
Yeah.
the catering.
Hmm.
Yeah, they're involved in it. AT&T and T and the rest of these telephony companies who provide telephony services to the prison for collect calls. They make millions of dollars off of that stuff. Um, and the private uh,
Ke-
prison
Ke- Kellogg,
constructors. Yeah.
Kellogg's, and so forth. Those companies they're a big part of it as well.
Hmm.
Kellogg's.
Why does Kellogg make any money off this? What's their role in that?
Well, they supply a lot of the breakfast foods and so forth.
Okay.
They
Damn.
contract.
Those little
Those
yeah, those little cup cereals.
little
Yeah. I mean, seriously. I mean, these are the players who are involved in this rapacious, horrific industry. It's horrific.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of money in it. There's a lot of money in it. So that's why they're involved. Also, some of your healthcare
Yeah.
companies, the agency Cigna and so forth.
Yep.
All that stuff.
Oh
Ill.
yeah.
It's ill.
Oh yeah. A lot
It's
of money
ill.
being wasted. I mean, you factor in there's 900 beds in a prison. On average, something close to that 450 to 900 beds in a prison, and you're locking up people for mental health issues and wasting 80, 50 grand, a year just to keep this person in prison when you can actually better manage that money through public institutions that are going to make sure that that person gets the right resources for their condition. Locking up people who have mental health issues is the wrong way to appropriate money for it. It needs to be
Exactly.
properly managed. It needs to be
But
properly managed.
if a prison is making $40,000 to $50,000 a year on each inmate they bring in, of course they're going to bring those kind of people in. Now, Obama and Holder, they were fighting against this. They
They
actually
were.
were
Yep.
running laws to keep that from happening. So all the black people, hey, Obama, he didn't do nothing. Obama, he didn't do nothing for us. Well, he's trying to keep you from getting locked down and profiteered on. So
Hmm.
I'm aware of that, and maybe some others might be as well. But there you go. But yeah, a horrible, horrific industry. Yeah,
But not to digress a little bit, but just even to follow up on the prison industrial discussion, there's also the labor aspect of it, right? So there's then the goods that are produced in the prisons, right? So
Hmm.
there's even more money being made, right, on the labor side of things.
and they're producing various types of products and so forth for these major corporations like Keebler and some of the other ones that were that were making money off of this, and then some of them decided to get out of it because of its of the public, as this information
Yeah.
in public and its
Yep.
public perception looks so bad, they decided to kind of get out of there.
Yeah.
Basically, making money off of slave wages, which I think they had a movie on it. I think it was the 13th Amendment. I think you guys might have seen that
Yep. Yep.
a
13.
documentary. Yeah,
13. Yeah.
which spoke to this. Very interesting. But anyway,
And that doesn't happen in other countries, right? There is no industrial complexes in these other countries, and the privatization of prisons. When you look at even most Muslim countries, most countries that practice Islam don't even put people in jail for life. I mean, you might get beheaded, but if you were in Saudi Arabia or something like that. But when it comes to the practicality behind putting someone in prison for punishment, 20 years is the most amount of time you're going to spend in there. We just saw Mohammed Morsi just pass away right after his trial, and he's been in there for 5 years. So what I'm saying here is there's no practicality behind what's going on with public spending, and for Black people, if they're trying to harness, this black dollar, the best way to go about that is to create an institution like this that's going to give you some power, and all of these Black women who are running for office would be, in lockstep with an institution like this, because it their jobs are on the line too, right? People have to vote, and and want some kind of a record on what's going on, policy wise.
I mean, look, I've been on record saying this, saying this before. Um, I'm not one who looks at, Black women who are in positions, positions of decision making and positions of power
Hmm.
as if some sort of, uh, I don't look at it in reference to say like where Black men are or anything like that. I'm more of the thought, or the line of thought that says, okay, here's what we do: you buy them, and then because they're in the position to make some calls or make some decisions, you buy them, and then you make them obligated to do your bidding because they're already there. See, so
Hmm.
I kind of look at it as like, okay, well, technically, you kind of have a foot in. All you got to do is just throw some. What politician isn't going to accept, uh, you know, donations to their coffers?
Hmm.
So yeah, you put the money in there, and then you call the favor in. Do this. We want this done. And I would say like as men, that's what, because if what cashing in those chips means, and if it means uh, more favorable business conditions for us, given that they're already there to make them to make those to implement it or put the bills in place, whatever the case may be, use them, given that they're in the position to make something happen for you. And you put the money behind them, and you force them to do it, just like any other group of people, or just like any other private interests. Black group was talking about banking. They're going to get behind certain politicians and be like, hey, no, put a stop to that. Let's say we do the same thing with them.
Hmm.
When it comes to
Yeah.
these public policy issues, right? Things that affect Black men and all that. Okay, well, look, you go to them. You can't make the demands. You got to. It's just like anything else in politics. You got to pay them. So I say buy them off. I've been on record as saying this before, man. Buy them off and make them do your bidding.
Zone, do you have any last words before we close out?
hang on a second. No, no, I think we pretty much talk pretty much about this. I would just say, the public banking is something that could be a very valuable tool for us. We could use it, and it could be used with devastating effect. Not to say that's the only answer, but it certainly is something that I think we should be involved.
Mike, we have one last question here in the chat. Yeah, what's up? Says, What
Sorry,
happens when robots?
somebody was calling me. So somebody was calling me, so I had to cut the phone off. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Ulysses. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay. Oh, it was just a question that was in the chat here. What happens when robots are more cost effective than convict leasing?
Well,
That's
it'll
actually
be
a good
interesting
question.
to see what happens.
Yeah, that's actually a good question. Yeah, it's a real good question.
I mean, they'll probably. I mean, what are they gonna do? Stop and frisk on robots now? Get those guys locked up? You've seen robots with smart contracts walking around talking about our lives matter and something like that.
What was the
All kinds of mess.
what was that? What was that flick, man? Where just that happened. Oh man, I can't remember that movie. That's exactly what happened.
Not Elysium. Elysium.
Oh no, it's older. It's
I know
older.
what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's it.
I know what
Yeah,
you're talking about. I forget the name. I forget the name right now.
yeah.
Yeah, but yeah. Thank you all for joining us, and please hit the like button if you have not already done so, and share the video if possible.
Absolutely.
And
And
go on good night.
Black Guru, please do that. And peace out, everyone.
Peace out.